Are you looking for whole food supplements for your ketogenic lifestyle? Then let me introduce you to Further Food. Go to furtherfood.com and you'll see that they source the highest quality ingredients on the planet. They have collagen peptides and my favorite, the gelatin powder to make those yummy gummies. And all of it is sourced from grass-fed, pasture-raised bovine collagen from Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Guys, this is really high-quality collagen and gelatin. There's no hormones or antibiotics. It's non-GMO, and it's the most tasteless and easiest to use on the market. And if you're not using collagen and gelatin, you need to be adding this to your ketogenic lifestyle. It helps reduce wrinkles, increase skin elasticity, making your skin firmer and softer. Collagen helps nails and hair grow longer and stronger while helping to rebuild your bones and strengthen your joints and ligaments. Collagen also helps with digestion and will help you curb your carb cravings. Again, head on over to furtherfood.com, enter the coupon code Jimmy at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your order. Elevate your wellness. Further Food. It's Real Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. Join us as we go deep into real life, talking about what really matters in your health, relationships, and every aspect of your life. There's no fakery here, you guys. Just real talk from two guys who are really real. Now here's Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole.
Will Cole, what's going on, man?
I am loving life, man. I'm in the middle of, as normally when we record, in the middle of consulting patients online. So we had to push back the recording a little bit because of consultation being a little bit over.
That's rare, though, but it's because you take such close attention to your patients that sometimes some need a little more TLC.
Yeah, you can't predict that sometimes. And
that's okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Good at your job.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah. How have you been? What's new?
Oh, man. I'm loving being back. Like, it's been a few weeks, but I still kind of feel like I got the training wheels on the bicycle and trying to get my feet wet a little bit. But this whole new perspective coming back from, all the stuff that I dealt with while I was gone, I feel like I'm the same guy, but I have a different worldview, if that makes sense. Like, I see the world through different glasses now than I did before I left.
That's so cool. I mean, it's awesome that you had that time of refreshment and reset, and we can hit the ground running for 2020.
Yeah. So, guys, this is Real Talk, and maybe you're kind of new to where we transitioned over to Real Talk. Used to be called Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. We still are very much keto. Dr. Cole and I very much are advocates for it, best-selling authors of books about it. But we expand our horizons a bit because Real Talk lets us talk really about anything. And today, I wanted to talk about something, Will, because it seems to be dominating all of the news media right now. It's even impacting the stock markets, going up and down and up and down. Bless you if you have a 401k that's tied to the stock market, because I know you're having, major coronary problems right now, trying to not be stressed about it. And I'll tell you the tipping point for me, Will, about the coronavirus is when I started seeing it being talked about in sports media. So in the mornings when I wake up, I'm listening to ESPN radio. And for 2 hours just today, they talked all about the ramifications of, like in Italy, they're shutting down complete sporting events, and they're thinking about having, the NCAA tournament without any fans in the stands. So I wanted to have us have a real conversation about what's really going on with this coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. As obviously what I do is functional medicine, is healthcare. It's interesting how many people are obviously patients are emailing and calling us and saying, what can I do? And then I get a lot of comments on social media as well as what can I do? So I'm glad we're having this conversation when you brought it to, as an idea for Real Talk. I think it's a great timely thing to talk about because there's so much information online. It can be information overload. And I think there's definitely palpable fear fear and hysteria that's driving a lot of this, where there's a lack of context. And
let's talk about that first. Let's get into the hysteria first, because this isn't the first time. We've had bird flu, swine flu, SARS, You name it, there has been some kind of health issue that kind of comes out and the media makes a big deal about it. Mm-hmm. And then you have experts go on television. Oh, this is the worst thing we've ever, it's a pandemic about to come. So this is not new. What's fascinating to me is the actual deaths from like coronavirus is like several hundred. Not that that's not significant. It is, but look at how many people die of like the common flu. Mm-hmm. And it's much higher. And there's much higher rates of loss from all kinds of diseases. Why do you think these kinds of things get sensationalized so much in the media?
I think it's the newness of it. I think if you look at the statistics as it is today, and obviously we're recording it earlier than when people are going to listen to it. But at this point, there are around 116,000 cases around the world of this COVID-19 or coronavirus, as they're calling it. And at this point, the worldwide death for the coronavirus at this point is listed at around 4,000, just over 4,000.
Right.
But if you look at the United States, where most of our listeners are listening to, it's going to be around 27 people that died in the United States so far. So to answer your question, I think it's the newness. If we heard, it's the newness plus the 24-hour news cycle and social media. Because if we heard of every death of the flu, influenza, we, I think, would be whipped up in fear too. Because, oh my gosh, another person died of the flu, another person died. Because if you look at the numbers, a lot more people die of the flu every year.
That's right.
Compared to this coronavirus. But so it's a bit of both. I think it is the newness of it, and that's typically how society works.
Right.
But it's also the fact that we have the news at our fingertips on our smartphones and the 24-hour news cycle on cable news. So I think it's a bit of both of that.
What is the motivation of the news media who seems to be stoking a lot of this? Is it just merely eyeballs to their content so that their advertisers are happy? That can't possibly be the only motivation.
I don't think so. I think that people are genuinely worried about it. And when you have governments involved, I mean, Italy at this point is on lockdown.
Yeah, they're shut down.
And I mean, they definitely have higher cases compared to us. I mean, they have at this point around 9,000 total cases. They've had 463 deaths. But at this point, the World Health Organization estimates the death rate of the coronavirus at around 3%. Putting that into context, the flu is under 1%. But what people in healthcare are looking at, and what even us in functional medicine, what we're kind of considering, is the fact that this 3% that the World Health Organization is estimating is really largely based on these reported cases, which are the more severe cases. Again, just to bring context to this, the people that are dying, albeit very, very sad, it's people with compromised immune systems, it's elderly people, it's people that are already sick, and then the coronavirus is they're more susceptible to dying from this virus. Children, people that are healthier, are not seemingly at this point being affected. They're not dying from the coronavirus at all. So the 3% is going to be, in my opinion, be going down from there. The more we realize how many more people around the world have mild cases of COVID-19. They're not being reported. And because largely it is so new, it was just, I think, December that China started reporting about this, that the more people are tested, they're going to find a lot of mild to moderate cases. And that 3% is going to get down closer to where the normal flu is. To around, under 1%. So it's the newness, it's the lack of testing that's really skewing the numbers, skewing the hysteria to the point of, okay, this is a lot worse. But if you're looking at the newness of it, you can understand why it is the way that it is. And like you said, the coronavirus is not new. I mean, this family of the coronavirus, that's where SARS came from as well. All of these viruses came originally from bats. I'm not a fan of bats at all. And then when I started researching the coronavirus, I hate bats even more. They're just sick creatures.
Have you ever been to Austin, Texas? Oh, you have, because Paleo Effects, they got that bat just down the road from this.
I did that once with my daughter. I did it once with my daughter when we were there for Keto Talk, or for the Keto Con they had there. I'm like, heck, that was the last time I was doing that. But the bats have over 500 different coronaviruses in them. Those sick little bats.
Wow.
But 7.
Tell us how you really feel.
God created bats. I'm just giving them a hard time. But
God created those.
But 7 of those coronaviruses have been so far transferred to humans. 4 of those coronaviruses are a cause of the common cold and show up as a common cold. And then you have SARS, and then you have something called MERS, which is basically the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. And then you have the COVID-19. So all of these originally came from bats. And then a lot of them, they're being traced back to the Wuhan area of China, where they have these wet markets, which I don't know if you guys have done research now on these wet markets, but pretty disgusting. They have all these live animals, like cages of bats, cages of bears, cages of these exotic animals, where they're all like peeing on each other, and they are all alive because it is seen in China as, the closer they are to life before you eat them, you get this invigoration, like extra potent energy that that's sort of the belief system in that area. So you have really unclean, unsanitary areas of these wet markets. And that's what researchers are kind of pointing to, the fact that a lot of these coronaviruses, like SARS, like MERS, like these common cold variations of the coronaviruses, and now COVID-19 are originating from. So, for example, SARS started out in bats, which these bats are alive in these wet markets. People eat basically just freshly killed bats, and the bats carry it specifically to SARS, to these civet cats, which are these pretty sort of exotic cats, and then it transferred to humans because people were eating these civet cats. These civet cats are alive they were alive when SARS the breakout was. They were alive in these Hong Kong restaurants, and they'd be alive until they were ordered in the restaurants, and then they'd be killed right there. So there was just unsanitation, and that's where the SARS breakout, which the SARS statistic, I think it was around a 10% death rate, for context of that. It's impacted less people, but had a higher percentage of death rate. Then you have the MERS, which is another coronavirus, which came from bats to camels to humans. And now COVID-19, they're thinking it's bats to something called the pangolin, which is like sort of a armadillo-looking creature. But again, this is an endangered species. It's actually illegal in China to serve pangolin in restaurants, but it's still being sold at these wet markets. And it's seen as a delicacy amongst the rich of China, and the scales are used in traditional Chinese medicine, but these things they're being contaminated from the bats, and then the bat is giving the virus to the pangolin, and then these people are eating this pangolin that has the virus, and then that is what researchers are finding, because there's about a 99% connection between the virus and the pangolin and what's being spread around the world right now with the COVID-19. But these things are endangered species. It's actually illegal in China to eat them, but it's still happening in the wet market. Now, at this point, China has shut down these wet markets, but I don't know how long they're going to be shut down, because it's such an institution of Chinese culture in that area to serve these exotic animals and keep them alive for their, magic qi. But the reality is it's causing a lot of problems around the world, not just with COVID-19, but all these other viruses that are being spread around.
So here's the thing. If this is a known entity, that these wet markets, for example, are part of the problem, why these kind of things develop, and it sounds like this coronavirus can mutate into other forms, that it's COVID, right now. But what happens when it goes to the next one? Is there any kind of inkling of trying to shift this? And we're talking about cultural things, so I don't know how you change that. Of course, here in America, we've got like feedlots and shoving a bunch of animals all together. I'm sure some disease grows from that as well. Is it just a matter of just having better practices so these things don't develop?
Yeah, I think it probably is the Chinese culture being educated on the fact that they could have their markets but have it in a sanitary way, in a way that's not spreading viruses around. And look, the Chinese government's very authoritarian. So, the way that they do things, if they want to shut things down, I mean, this is completely off topic, but this government is throwing thousands and thousands of people in prisons, like Muslims. And I mean, they're very authoritarian. So they get things done in a negative way. They can hopefully get things done in a positive way too, which is just having basic sanitation, education and regulations on things like this.
To me, if I'm the United States or any other country, I think this kind of calls for nothing coming from China, no people, no products, no nothing. And that would kill their economy. So
yeah, I don't know if we could do that. I honestly don't think the United States, the way that we are, or, the way that the trade industry is, the way that we depend so much on China. I don't know if that would happen. But and with the international sort of our world is so small in many ways. I don't know if we can completely shut down. We could regulate it. We could probably tighten it up a bit more. And we obviously are doing that at this point as a country. But I think people need to understand that this COVID-19 is not a new thing. I mean, the same family as SARS, same family as MERS, same family as just common cold viruses. And this 3% at the World Health Organization death rate at this point, the more testing that is done, we're going to see that number drop, because there are many mild, moderate cases out there that are not being reported because they can still function. They're still going to work. They may think they just have a mild flu. They may think they have a cold. They have some lung issues, but it's not being reported. So it's definitely a problem. We need to talk about it, and that's why we have this show today. But it's not as hyperbolic as people are making it out to be.
Well, and there's the rub. I think people have gotten so whipped up into a frenzy, like they're fearful of what's happening right now. So let's kind of put a calmness to the hysteria. I know that they've been encouraging people, wash your hands, keep good hygiene, do kind of the basic common sense hygiene things. Duh. We should be doing that all the time. In fact, cruise ships are kind of suffering from this and a lot of the coronavirus outbreaks, and they have to quarantine them on cruise ships. And I just heard from somebody, because I do a low carb cruise every year in May. We're still doing it. It's not being canceled. But they said Royal Caribbean has like a whole team. Like you're seeing more of the cleanliness team than you are the whole, like the serving staff. And they're like constantly cleaning everything. When you go into the dining area, they're forcing you to put that hand sanitizer, which that's a whole nother discussion altogether, that I've always hated that hand sanitizer thing on cruise ships. But I suppose it's a good precaution at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. If nothing else, it's caused America and the world to wake up to washing their hands, which is a good thing, and being a little bit cleaner. It's a great thing. You definitely can know. I just was traveling for work to Los Angeles recently, and the amount of people that the malls and the public areas had wiping things down was really interesting. You could palpably notice a difference. But you're right. I mean, a lot of things are being shut down, are canceled or rescheduled. I was actually in Los Angeles in part for the Expo West, so the world's largest natural food expo. They postponed that. I was there for other things as well, thankfully, so I still could get other things done. But that put a lot of companies that shipped products and put lots of money into this expo, and they had to postpone that. But I understand Expo West. Look, it's a whole event centered around food sampling. Probably not the best time to do that.
Don't want to be touching people who've been sneezing on samples.
Yeah, it'd be best not to do that at that point. But because there was just, again, the newness, I think sponsors were dropping left and right. A lot of the big companies were pulling out, and they didn't have a good handle on the messaging, and the hysteria was too strong for the event. And then I just heard that PaleoFX is rescheduling for July. And Mind Body Green has an event every summer called Revitalize. They're postponing that. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with events. They're worried about a low turnout, and sponsors are pulling out. So they don't want to put an event and lose money on an event. I get that. When you have thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of these events, there's a lot of money at stake for a low turnout.
And that's the unintended consequence here. Yeah.
And the Hysteria is whipping that up, and you can't really beat that. Something I didn't mention earlier that I thought was interesting, and just researching over the past couple of weeks, is that in 1918, the flu virus actually had a similar percentage of what they're saying the COVID-19 is at this point, as far as death rate is concerned. So it's almost like even if you're going off that 3% death rate of the WHO, it's equal to a bad flu year as far as the death rate is concerned, because the normal flu year is under 1%. But again, the more people are tested, you're going to see that number drop with these more mild cases out there that are not being reported.
What's amazing to me is every time something like this happens, they're always like, well, we're waiting on a flu vaccine to be developed to help us deal with this. And I'm thinking, okay, is there no other way to boost your immune system other than giving yourself a little bit of this flu so you build up antibodies? That's kind of the funny part for me. And of course, people like you and me are out here kind of teaching people to eat better and to do better lifestyle practices that put their immune system in a better place. So can we talk about some of those things? It might be redundant for people that are regular listeners, but what are some things we can do to boost our immune system so this thing becomes a non-entity?
Yeah, for sure. So you're right. I mean, first starts with hygiene. That's the best thing you do. Wash your hands, just making sure that you are cleaning up, wiping things down, be logical about it. That's first and foremost. And because this virus is new, there's not going to be any studies on natural medicines or botanical medicines specific to COVID-19, but we do have hundreds and hundreds of studies on natural medicines in relationship to their ability to support the immune system, and to some of them specifically to decrease viral replication, basically lowering the ability of the virus to spread throughout the body. So that's what as I'm going to go through sort of these functional medicine tips to support a healthy immune system, to decrease viral replication, they're based on those components. But keep it in mind. We don't have any studies. This virus just started being noticed by China in this past December. There's not any long-term studies for this. So something to support a healthy immune system, it obviously starts with food, guys. I mean, everybody that listens to the show knows that a healthy, clean, whole foods based ketogenic diet is an amazing way to support a healthy immune system because, a few reasons. One, you're avoiding foods that really irritate and weaken the immune system. You're avoiding sugar, you're avoiding lots of grains, you're avoiding processed foods, high rancid vegetable industrial seed oils. These are all things that are really going to tax the immune system, tax the gastrointestinal system, which 75% of your immune system is in your gut. So to understand immune mediated things, you have to look at where the predominance of your immune system resides, which is in the gastrointestinal system, in your gut. So a ketogenic diet, the way that we advocate it on this show, is a great foundation to support a healthy immune system. Why? You're avoiding these processed foods, but we know that ketosis itself is quite therapeutic to the immune system and upregulates these pro-antioxidant pathways like the AMPK pathway and the NRF2 pathway, helps to lower these abnormal inflammatory cascades, which can really be taxing on the immune system, like the NF-kappa B, the COX-2 pathway, these pro-inflammatory, like the NLRP3 inflammasomes. It brings them down. So you're de-stressing the immune system basically, and you're upregulating all these pro-antioxidant healthy pathways, and you're helping the gut, which is again the home of most of your immune system. So there's a lot of benefits to eating a clean ketogenic diet. And then from there, you can build on things that research shows to be helpful in supporting a healthy immune system and or specific to have antiviral properties. So some supplements that I've been focusing on, one is like a beta-glucan supplement, which beta-glucans are basically fibers on cell walls of different yeasts. It's on mushrooms as well, which adaptogenic mushrooms like reishi can be very helpful to supporting the immune system because of these beta-glucans that are responsible for these immunomodulating effects, these antiviral effects, these immune supporting effects of adaptogenic mushrooms. So the ones that I like are reishi, shiitake, turkey tail, not a literal turkey tail, guys. Don't go to a wet market, get a turkey tail. This is a mushroom.
Yummy.
Yeah. No wet markets here. But they're basically, you want to look, if you're getting beta glucan in a supplement form, typically it's in capsule form. You're going to look for around 250 milligrams, give or take a few, depending on what brand you're getting. Zinc is one that's it's been used for a long time for its immune supporting effects. Deficiencies of zinc are associated with increased levels of sickness, increased
stomach
infection
acid
rates.
going down. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to look for around 30 milligrams of zinc. Again, you could look at different dosages. It definitely varies, but basically zinc has been shown in tons of studies to mediate antiviral effects against certain viruses. Again, not specifically COVID-19. We don't have the studies on that, but generally speaking, it's multiple different viruses. Zinc has been shown to basically inhibit different viruses from replicating. So that is one to think about. Alpha lipoic acid is another supplement that I've been upping my intake of. I take around 600 milligrams of that. It's been shown in different studies to be a viral inhibitor. Again, it also supports the liver, which is really good from a detoxification standpoint. And then one of my favorite supplements also is N-acetylcysteine, or NAC. You'll see NAC on the bottle, but it also inhibits viral replication. It's also a precursor to glutathione, which is your sort of master antioxidant. So I take around just 600 to 1,000 milligrams of NAC as well. So yeah, we have patients. If people want to, they could go to drwillcole.com. They could just reach out to us. We don't have it on the site. We're not selling it on the site. But if people want us to get them in contact with good brands, we can definitely point them in the right direction. But those are some things that I've been upping. And vitamin C. I didn't mention vitamin C. Vitamin C is definitely good. I take around 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, which just supports a healthy immune system too.
If you're a fan of fat, then you need to try the F-Bombs. Go to JimmyLovesFBomb.com, enter the coupon code JimmyLovesFBomb, and you'll get 20% off of your first order. So what are these F-Bombs? They are nut butters, and they have incredible combinations of coconut and macadamia nut butter, and my favorite is salted chocolate macadamia nut butter. They also have several oil blends, including the house blend, the MCT oil, as well as coconut oil. If you want your fat on the go, then you need to check out JimmyLovesFBomb.com. And once again, use the coupon code JimmyLovesFBomb. You'll get 20% off your first order. JimmyLovesFBomb.com.
So, Will, if 97% of us are okay, even if we get this, we're not going to die from it. What about those 3%? Who is in that 3%? We mentioned the elderly. We mentioned people who have compromised immune systems in some way, autoimmune disease or significant disease. Who else is susceptible?
I would say people that have a history of lung infections, because it seems like this virus really is lung centric. It can cause pneumonia. So people that have fallen ill in the past from lung centric problems, like they suffer from coughs, they suffer from different immunodeficiencies, difficulty breathing. If they're elderly, I would say those people should be mindful of. And I think that that's where the context matters. I think a lot of the hysteria, not that they should be hysteric at all, but those people should be careful. They shouldn't be going and living, going around in public places at this point. I would protect yourself if you're up against these problems. And if you're in an area that this is spreading. Look, if you're in Washington State at this point, around those areas, you have to take that into account. Where are you at? How many cases are in your area? And what's your risk factor? Are you elderly? Are you immune compromised in some way? Are you prone to lung infections? That's the context that I'm talking about. But if you're, in a state where there's basically no cases, if you're a healthy person, then that also needs to be put into context. You don't need to be going up in the stores and buying up all the water bottles and the masks. It's really impacting people. We need to save these face masks and save these supplies for people who need it, people that are in this 3%, because they need it. And we need to not, I would, in a way, I would be as a person that's not in that 3%, look what you can do to support people in that 3%.
Yeah.
Maybe going and getting them supplies if they can't go out of their house. Maybe if they're in an area where there is an outbreak, go in and support them any way that you can. So I think that should be our impetus, not freaking out ourselves if we're not in that 3%.
The behavior of people when something like this hits as a, mass hysteria, medical health crisis is so funny to me. We go buy up all the bottled water. We go buy up all the TP. It's like, okay, what's toilet paper have to do with the lung issue? Okay. We buy all these things as emergency kind of things. And to what end? Like, what are people trying to accomplish? Like, do you really think that that's going to save you from this or protect you in some way? It's just funny. And then the stock market, like we hadn't even talked about the economic effects of this, up and down and up and down. And of course, I'm a big believer in over time, those things, self-regulate and they come back to normal. But man, I mean, it just has had such a widespread impact across every area of our lives.
Yeah, I know. It is remarkable. But I think people just need to educate themselves and need to sort of breathe and put things into context, because that's the best thing you can do. And I think in many ways, if you look at the totality of human history, these things are nothing new. I mean, we have, like I said, in 1918, we had an uptick of the deaths from flus around the percentage that we had now. And that was, about 100 years ago.
Right.
You're going to have these fluctuations. And I think as a whole, if you look at us as, the herd of the human race at this point, a lot of us are at an increased disadvantage of these. We're at a disadvantage of these viral outbreaks because of our poor health as a society.
Right.
I mean, you look at even going back to Wuhan in China, it was hitting a lot of older men because, the smoking rate of men in China is really high.
Yeah.
So this is a virus that impacts the lung. It makes people prone to viral pneumonia. And then it's hitting the guys that are eating really unhealthy, super stressed, and that are smoking. So we need to look at overall at the people that are being impacted. And if you're living an unhealthy lifestyle, that's going to make you more prone to a lot of different problems. And this is not an exception to this, COVID-19. But I didn't even talk about this, but I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
We look at the amount of people that die every day from chronic health problems.
Yes.
You look at the level of cancer and the level of heart disease, the level of diabetes and autoimmune diseases that happen every day. Thousands and thousands of people die every day from these diseases. COVID-19 doesn't even scratch the surface of the amount of people that die every year from these chronic health problems. And I saw a meme. It was really appropriate. It said, basically everyone freaks out when we hear about this coronavirus, but you talk about 10 times more people die every day from chronic health problems. What do? We come out with a new flavor of Doritos. It's like, we don't even flinch of the fact that there are thousands more people dying every day from these chronic health problems. But where's the hysteria around that? So it's not proportional to what the numbers are. So that's something that I want people to remember too.
Well, and my problem too is they're making it seem like this is the second reincarnation of the bubonic plague, which was a real, health disaster back in the day. And so let's not conflate what this is. It's slightly worse than the common cold, which over time it might even be equal, is what you're saying, to like what you have with the normal flu. Yeah, sorry. The flu. And so let's not pretend like this is like the worst thing that's ever happened. But The problem is the media puts it out there. People get fearful. They see it get closer and closer. We just literally got the first case of it here in Spartanburg, South Carolina at a hospital. Somebody had it. And so, oh my gosh, we got to shut down schools. We got to shut down this. We can't have, any corporate, groups. I did not hear about Paleo FX moving, but I know the low carb Denver event as of the recording of this is this weekend. They're not shutting down. So I think it's going to be very selective of what area, has outbreaks, I suppose. But, what's an outbreak? One person having it in your area, is that considered an outbreak? I don't think so.
Right.
If it's thousands of people in an area that's very, dense with people, then yeah, that could be an outbreak. So let's keep all that in perspective too, as we talk about this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just pulled up the statistic here that I was referencing. It's because right now, at the time of us recording, we have over 4,000 deaths worldwide for the coronavirus. To put that into perspective, on any given day, we have about 26,000 people dying from cancer on a day, let alone since the beginning, 4,000 deaths from coronavirus. 24,000 people die a day from heart disease. 4,000 people die a day of diabetes. And then you look at all these other health problems that are out there too. So it's something, of course, it's serious. I'm not delegitimizing the people that are dying. I'm delegitimizing the seriousness of us looking at this and what is actually causing that. But at the same time, I think context matters. And it's something that is lost, I think, in our culture today.
Well, and, knowing that President Trump allocated trillions of dollars towards creating a vaccine for this thing, that when I saw that story, regardless of what your political affiliation is, I just thought it was more knee-jerk reaction than actually doing something, because we have more prescient things that they could have used that money on that would do far greater good in the public health than throwing it at one little thing that's really not as big a deal as some of these other things we're talking about.
Yeah, I think largely that was optics, right? It's like it's almost optics. Like you had to do that because if you're seeming weak on it, I mean, it's how politics works, right? But it's right. There's a larger health crisis in the United States that we need to look at, whether, and as this number comes down, as more people are being tested, we're going to realize what's the foundation here. We still have a very weak foundation as far as health is concerned in this country and around the world. That's what ultimately needs to be the long-term solution to this, vaccine or no vaccine.
So, Will, where are we going with this? I mean, it's been a hysterical story now for about 3 months. So where is it going from here? Do you see it having legs for a few more months before it starts to die down and we see those statistics normalize like you've been describing here today? When does it end?
Yeah, I think that as we get past cold and flu season, we're going to see these numbers come down, and even if it's not coming down to where the flu is at, even if it's a high flu-like season, I think it'll normalize. It'll stay steady. That's what the trajectory is showing. There's going to be more and more cases. What we're going to see, what I would suspect, is that over the next couple months, you're going to see more and more people being diagnosed because testing is becoming more readily available. And because more people are being diagnosed, we're going to see more people die, sadly, but it's going to, if it's any indication of right now, the people that are going to die are the people that were sadly going to die from something else anyways. They were sick people or elderly people that the virus was the tipping point. Sad. It's horrible. These are people's family members. These are loved ones and shouldn't be made light of. But it's the same as the influenza. It's the same as the flu. People die from that. Hundreds of thousands of people die from that, and that's sad. But that's the same context that I'm bringing to this. But I think it'll even out, and I don't see it being a long-term problem. There's no evidence of that as far as it being increasing, the mortality rate increasing. I don't see that happening.
But the ramifications of this becoming a media hysteria that whips everybody up will have a lasting impact. I mean, like you talked about earlier, the economic impact of changing Expo West and all the people that, had things going out, and Paleo FX having to move to another, that it has to be this economic impact. And of course, the stock market in the temporary is way down, but hopefully it comes back. It's a reminder, you guys, that when things like this happen, the best thing you can do is just keep calm. And that's one thing I haven't brought out about this today. How many people are stressed out to no end over this made up, controversial kind of pandemic that's happening? They're stressed over something that at the end of the day is highly unlikely to affect them at all.
Yeah, if you look at the statistics, that they have a better chance of a lot of other things over this. But it's hard because people are watching the news, they are reading their Twitter feed and the news feed. That it's just blown out of proportion. Again, you obviously have to take logical steps. But in my opinion, at this point, it's whatever you would do 6 months ago for your health, you should be doing now. There's no reason to panic. And until we hear otherwise, where the death rate goes a lot higher than that, we need to realize that this is something that people shouldn't be freaking out about.
Is this irresponsible journalism? And if it is, how could they cover it? Because obviously it is a news story of interest, but how do you cover it without it being this mass hysteria? I think there is a fine line between what they're doing and what they should be doing.
Yeah, I think, and I've seen some outlets do this, I feel like if they're going to report about someone that sadly dies from the coronavirus, they need to be in the headline putting the context of who it was.
Right.
And I see some outlets saying this, where it was a person with another health problem, or it was a person that was very ill, or if it was an elderly person. So people know that if they're in their 40s or their 50s, or if they're, if they're not under in this 3% sort of category, they can understand, okay, this isn't like a widespread like movie from the 90s where everybody's like dropping dead in the streets. I feel like that's what people need that's what I feel like the media could do, because many people don't actually read past the headlines, and they aren't actually looking at the context, and they just see another person died, another person died, another person died, and they're not looking at the context of who passed away.
Is that patient data openly available? I wonder if somebody could look at those 4,000 plus cases and look at the commonality, kind of get the mean, average age, talk about how many percentage had this disease, that disease. I would love someone to do that analysis.
It's been done. Yeah. You have to read past the headlines, but most of the people let's just say this, everybody that's died has been elderly or had other health problems.
Yes.
So we're talking about people in their 70s and 80s and people with other health problems. That's the people that died. The other people that are more susceptible are people in their 60s, but they're not necessarily dying from that. They're just having more extreme cases, and they overcome it. And then everybody else has mild cases. Kids, mild cases. Adults, mild cases. So healthy people, mild cases. So that's what's coming out at this point and what we understand about it at this point.
So, Will, this is going to happen again. If it's not COVID-19, not SARS, not, all this, it's going to happen again. We're going to have a future outbreak that will be the next worst pandemic the world has ever seen. What do we do?
Yeah, I think going back to all the things that I mentioned in the episode to support a healthy immune system, I think that those are the things you should be doing. And like I just said briefly a moment ago, is that if you were living your life 6 months ago, buying the things you were buying 6 months ago, in the amount that you were buying things 6 months ago, you should be doing the same now. Don't stockpile. Don't be a prepper. Don't have a bunker in your basement.
Oh, we just lost half our audience. No preppers. That's real talk, man.
Be logical about it.
Yes.
Don't be fear. Fear without facts is a dangerous place to be. Ooh. And so put that into perspective.
Fear without facts, a dangerous place to be. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think we helped to at least calm a little bit of the fears out there about the coronavirus. And I think It was an important thing for us to talk about here today. Hopefully you guys listening right now on Real Talk feel a little bit better about what this is really about, what you can do. And of course, if you're regular listeners, you know a lot of these things that we talked about. So it's not something new, but it is something that everybody's talking about, which is why we wanted to talk about it here today on Real Talk. So thanks so much for joining us today. Check out Dr. Will Cole. He has a lot of great stuff over at drwillcole.com, drwillcole.com. I'm Jimmy Moore. I'm at llvlc.com, and that's where you can listen to this show, get full show notes for this episode, and check out all of my work as well. So, Will, that was fun, man. Let's do this again next Thursday.
Yeah, see you then.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. Listen to the show wherever podcasts are heard. Go to llvlc.com to learn more about what we talked about on today's show. Thanks for joining us for Real Talk. Come back next Thursday for more Real Talk from real people.
Disc of Light.